Hello guys, welcome to the movie recap review. Happy watching.
Please tell me your name? Oh shit!
About 10 years ago, a priest traveled with his wife and daughter to a remote island in Malaysia to spread the will of God. At first, the locals welcomed them warmly, and many attended the new church regularly. But tensions soon arose when followers of the island's traditional gods grew angry at the priest's efforts to replace their beliefs. Strange symbols and masks started appearing, and eventually the church was burned down. In the present day, American teenager Toby ignores his father David's invitation to work on the car together, choosing to stay glued to his phone instead. David works on the car alone, but is ambushed outside by masked criminals who stab him and steal the vehicle. With the TV on, Toby doesn't hear anything until the car screeches away. By the time he rushes outside, it's too late. News of David's murder spreads quickly, and Toby is consumed by guilt. His mother takes him to a psychologist who suggests a program for trauma recovery, spending 3 days in isolation on an uninhabited island. Toby reluctantly agrees and finds himself seasick on a boat, heading to the island a few weeks later. During the trip, someone pranks him by knocking him into the water with the sail. After a full day of sailing, the group leader, Kay, explains the rules. Each participant will be dropped on a separate island for 3 days with only basic supplies: a sleeping bag, tarp, flashlight, food, and a flare for emergencies. The next morning, Kay drops Toby off, reminding him to meet on the shore at dawn in 3 days. Watching the boat leave reminds Toby of the night the police took his father's body, but he pushes through his emotions and starts setting up camp. He clumsily builds a flimsy tent with a tarp while talking to himself to fend off loneliness. Later, Toby ventures into the jungle for firewood and finds coconuts. But when he clears the vegetation, he discovers a dead monkey, which jolts him with memories of finding David's body. Shaken, he returns to his tent, only to discover another monkey has eaten half his food. Toby attempts to start a fire but fails, burning his hand in the process. Frustrated, he wades into the water to catch fish but steps on sharp shells, injuring his foot. He does manage to find some clams, but his bleeding foot stirs the water, and the blood drifts toward a strange, eerie mask lying at the bottom of the sea. Later, Toby uses the magnifying glass on his Swiss knife to successfully start a fire. He cooks the clams and eats them, but they make him nauseous. After throwing up, he ventures into the jungle with his flashlight to search for coconuts to drink. When he finally finds them, he hears footsteps behind him. Shining his flashlight around, he catches a glimpse of a creepy face peering from behind a tree before it quickly disappears. Terrified, Toby runs back to his camp, lights the emergency flare, and collapses, haunted by memories of his father's murder. During the night, the rising tide sweeps away most of Toby's belongings. When he wakes up the next morning, he's leaning against a tree, and to his surprise, freshly cut coconuts are waiting for him. While drinking, he spots a girl standing in the water. She turns to leave, but Toby follows her. Suddenly, the girl spins around, brandishing a knife. However, she doesn't attack. She's tracking the sound of an animal caught in one of her traps. The girl, Madeline, warns Toby that the island is dangerous and leads him away after he notices how lethal her traps are. They arrive at a dam built by missionaries, where Madeline starts a fire, cooks her catch, and shares the meal with Toby. Once they're done, Madeline declares she's heading home and tells Toby not to follow. He tries anyway, but she pulls out her knife again, this time to kill a snake that nearly bites Toby. Before leaving, Madeline advises him to stay close to the fire at night to keep the animals away. Toby spends the night in a makeshift shelter on the dam. In his sleep, he dreams that one of his father's killers has found him and attacks. Waking up in a panic, he notices his fire has gone out and hears noises in the dark. Thinking it might be Madeline, he ventures into the jungle and finds a thread tied to some strange decorations hanging from a tree. When he pulls it, the decorations rattle, and the eerie figure from the previous night appears behind him. But as soon as Toby turns around, the figure vanishes. The next morning, Toby wakes to find Madeline already cooking breakfast by the fire. She notices his injured foot and takes him to find a plant that can help heal it. Along the way, she shares that she's been on the island since childhood, living only with her mother after her father's death. When they find the plant, Madeline crushes its leaves and applies them to Toby's wound, explaining that it's medicinal but can't be eaten unless someone wants to fall asleep. To demonstrate, she dabs a bit on Toby's lip, leaving them numb. Toby and Madeline spend the day together. Madeline teaches Toby how to survive on the island, showing him how to fish and build a shelter. In return, Toby tells her about things like high fives and the internet. When night comes, Madeline has to leave again. Toby notices she's heading toward the tree with the strange decorations. Before leaving, Madeline gives Toby a spear she made to protect himself. She warns him not to follow her because her mother would kill him if he did. She promises they can meet again in the morning, but Toby tells her he's being picked up at dawn. This upsets Madeline, making her feel abandoned. She runs off to her home in the tree while Toby stays behind, calling out to her. When dawn arrives, Kay comes to the beach to pick up Toby, but he's not there. Hearing his voice in the jungle, Kay grabs a flashlight and searches for him. Strange noises echo through the trees, and Kay trips, dropping the flashlight. Suddenly, she sees her flashlight beam pointing back at her. When she moves closer, the light shuts off, and the flashlight is thrown to the ground. As Kay reaches for it, she notices two glowing eyes in the darkness. A paw suddenly presses on her hand, and the jungle fills with Kay's terrified screams. The next morning, Toby wakes up, realizing he fell asleep while calling for Madeline. He rushes to the beach but finds it empty. Hoping Kay might still come back, he waits. After a while, he sees a lifebuoy floating in the water. Following a trail of objects, he discovers Kay's boat overturned. To his shock, he sees Madeline's mother swimming away with Kay's supplies. Curious, Toby swims into the capsized boat to investigate. Inside, he finds two flares, but is horrified to also find Kay's lifeless body behind a door. Panicked, Toby tries to escape, but gets his clothes caught on another door. He barely manages to free himself and surfaces, gasping for air. Later, Toby ventures into the jungle and finds Kay's flashlight with strange claw marks on it. He follows a path to the entrance of Madeline's tree. Inside, he discovers a rocky tunnel filled with bats and unsettling noises. As he explores, the creepy figure appears behind him again, startling him into dropping the flashlight. In the darkness, the noises grow louder and closer. Frantically searching the ground, Toby finds the flashlight and switches it back on. The light reveals eerie drawings on the tunnel walls. Toby reaches the end of the tunnel and steps out into the ruins of an old burned church. Nearby, he hears the bleating of a goat and finds Madeline's mother killing it for food. Quietly exploring further, he discovers the cabin where Madeline and her mother live. Inside, Toby finds Kay's empty bag, a box with 3 passports, and an old photo showing Madeline and her mother with the priest who came to the island years ago. He also spots a can of gasoline and, most importantly, Kay's radio. Toby quickly tries to use the radio to call for help. He hears a single hello before the line goes dead. At that moment, he hears Madeline and her mother returning and hides under the bed. As he shifts to stay out of sight, Toby finds a terrifying mask, the same face as the creature that attacked him before. Madeline's mother begins preparing a mixture using the numbing plant and argues with Madeline, insisting she's not ready to leave the island. Once the mother leaves the room, Toby quietly approaches Madeline. She warns him it's too dangerous, but promises to meet him at the beach later. Toby sneaks back to the beach and uses what Madeline taught him to catch fish and start a fire. While eating, he notices a blinking light on the other side of the island. Thinking someone might be signaling him, he builds a larger fire that can be seen from far away. Later that evening, Madeline startles Toby, surprised he's still there. Toby tells her about Kay's death and says he suspects her mother killed her. Madeline, visibly upset, rests her head on Toby's leg and opens up about her childhood. She recalls being happy with her family and playing with local children until one terrible day when everything changed. She remembers crying in a corner while her mother, covered in blood, told her not to look. Madeline admits she often sees horrible things at night and believes her mother might have killed everyone. Toby asks Madeline to run away with him, saying another rescue boat will likely come soon. She agrees, but insists on returning to her mother for now to avoid suspicion. The next morning, Toby wakes to the sound of a plane flying overhead. He chases after it, but it's already gone. During his run, he stumbles upon an abandoned lighthouse. While exploring, Toby realizes the light isn't working. Remembering what David taught him about cars, he figures out the light needs gasoline to function. Toby heads back to the beach, but unexpectedly bumps into Cameron, another participant in the program. Cameron says he wasn't picked up either, but found a robot that helped him search for others after realizing his island was empty. Toby shares some food and tells Cameron about his experiences while making a new spear. When Cameron calls him foolish for trusting a pair of murderers, Toby angrily threatens him with the spear. After calming down, Toby apologizes and explains he can't leave Madeline behind because she's also a victim. Determined, he heads off to find her. At the house, Toby is caught by surprise when Madeline's mother confronts him and takes his spear. She tries to reason with him, but Toby runs away. The mother chases after him, but accidentally falls into one of Madeline's traps, leaving her impaled and trapped between a tree and a thick spear. Gravely injured, the mother tells Toby the truth. She didn't kill anyone. She explains she's been scaring people away because the real murderer is Madeline. Years ago, the locals warned them about a dark presence on the island, but the priests dismissed their fears. While the adults argued, young Madeline wandered off to the altar where the locals made animal sacrifices. This allowed a demon to possess her, as depicted in the drawings Toby saw in the tunnel. Madeline killed everyone in the church, burned it down, and left only her mother alive. Before dying, the mother gives Toby a bag of the numbing plant to subdue Madeline and warns him that she becomes demonic in the dark or near light she dislikes. She begs him to ensure Madeline never leaves the island. Meanwhile, Cameron, waiting back at camp, hears strange noises and ventures into the jungle. He stumbles across a pile of bones, distracted just long enough for a demonic Madeline to appear and drag him into the trees. By the time Toby returns, all that remains is Cameron's blood. Hearing a noise, Toby turns to see a demonic Madeline carrying her mother's body. But when she recognizes Toby as a friend, she reverts to her human form. Furious, she demands to know what happened to her mother. To keep her calm, Toby lies and says he killed her so they could be together. This makes Madeline happy, and she kisses him, pushing him to the ground. As they get closer, Toby drops the bag of numbing plant. He pretends to go along with her to recover it, but Madeline notices his hesitation and starts transforming again. In a panic, Toby grabs her spear and knocks her out. He then forces the numbing plant into her mouth and ties her up with vines to keep her subdued. Toby rushes to the house, grabs the gasoline, and prepares a torch to light his way back to the lighthouse. He leaves the torch at the entrance to keep animals away and heads upstairs to turn on the light, remembering how his dad once taught him to start a car. As the light begins to rotate, Toby waits for a boat, but when no one comes, he decides to leave. On his way down, the stairs collapse, causing Toby to fall and spill gasoline across the floor. While trying to recover, he notices the special plant growing nearby. Suddenly, the door slams shut, and as the rotating light moves away, a demonic Madeline sneaks through the shadows to attack. Toby grabs some of the plant, but Madeline overpowers him, forcing the plant's juice into his eyes. She retreats briefly when the light sweeps back, giving Toby time to rinse his eyes at a nearby sink, where he finds a glass shard floating in the water. When the light moves away again, Madeline attacks, but Toby uses the shard to defend himself. He considers grabbing the torch, but is distracted when Madeline appears as her younger self, crying. Worried, Toby hesitates, only for the child to reveal her demonic face and transform back into her adult form, leaping at him. Hearing a boat approaching, Toby knows he must act quickly. As Madeline starts to possess him, he grabs the shard and angles it to reflect the light, burning her face and forcing her to retreat. Toby seizes the chance to run outside, grab the torch, and throw it at the gasoline, igniting a fire. Madeline reverts to her human form, pleading for pity, but Toby shuts the door and runs to the beach. Toby sees the boat heading toward the lighthouse and swims to intercept it. However, as he waits in the water, Madeline suddenly appears behind him. Moments later, the rescuer leaves the island with a hooded figure, believing it's the person who turned on the lighthouse. Once out of sight, the figure is revealed to be Madeline, ready to unleash chaos in the city.
And that's the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Comment down below what movies do you like us to recap next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.